Oh well, I'll tell you the good news then. We'll see what they do about it. So I wanted to give you guys some extra motivation to study hard for your final, because I know it's hard to get excited when you're thinking about this big paper and then you're thinking about this final exam. So here is my special motivation for you. If you earn 90% or better on the final, I will give you 1 letter grade higher than you earned with points. That means, so say you get an A on the final, and that brings your grade to a C in the class. I will give you a B. If you have, if that 90% would give you an A in the class, I'll give you an A+. So I want it to be worth your while to bring it all the way to the end of the semester, because this is a cumulative final and it's tough. But I want you to know it's worth taking the time to do it, because it does matter that you still know the information. So 90% or better on the final, and you can earn 1 letter grade higher than you would have earned with points. So don't quit. Don't give up. That means even if you are on the edge, if you can bring it in at, if you can say, and this is even true, say you get a 90% on the final, and that 90% makes your grade a 68. Your grade becomes a 78, and you pass the class. That's it. All right, deal? So, don't quit. No matter what, don't quit. Okay? No quitting. Anybody? And if I have any superstars who are like, I already have an A, well, come take the final and get an A+ then, show off. You think you're all fancy pants about that, fine with me. But you don't have to. If you've already got your A on all the exams, you don't have to. But if you want to, you can. All right.
1 sheet of paper, right?
1 sheet of paper, right. 1 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Anything you want to put on one side. Okay. And let's talk about what's going to be on there. First, let me tell you what's not going to be on there. Here's what's not going to be on the test. So these are the things you don't have to worry about, don't have to focus on. Okay? First thing you don't have to worry about are things that were covered on quizzes. So, you don't have to go back and study plagiarism stuff. You don't have to go back and study PsycInfo stuff. You don't have to go back and study APA style stuff. You don't have to go back and study the syllabus. Okay? You don't have to go back and study things from 3510. So things that were on the quizzes you don't have to worry about. We're going to focus on the final on things that we covered on exams and problem sets. The exception to that is I will not put any questions on the final that require that you know or you have memorized information or put notes on your sheet about any of the articles we read. So you don't have to know what the independent variable for Article 1 was. You don't have to know what hypothesis they were testing in Article 2. You don't have to know those things. In the greater scheme of things, it doesn't really matter that much. So I might pull a table from one of those papers and ask you to look at the table and tell me if a particular finding was significant or not. But you don't have to know. It could be from any paper, right? It could be a paper you've never seen before. You should still be able to read the table. All right. So what we are going to cover. We're going to go all the way back. Let's think back now to Exam 1. We started off talking about how to identify and evaluate scientific claims. So remember we talked about frequency claims, association claims, and causal claims. And we talked about how to evaluate them in terms of construct validity, statistical validity, internal validity, and external validity. So you do need to know what all those things are. You need to know, you need to be able to identify independent variables from a summary. When I say identify then, you need to be able to tell whether the independent variables are between subjects variables or within subjects variables, if they're manipulated variables or subject variables. And you need to be able to tell from the description and identify the right. Then you need to be able to tell how many levels they have, what the levels are, if that information is included. You need to know for independent groups designs and between subjects designs, you need to know the different ways to assign subjects to groups. So you have to know how to do random assignment using block randomization. And you need to know how to do matching plus block randomization. For within subjects designs or repeated measures, related groups designs, you need to know about counterbalancing. So you need to know about how to do counterbalancing with block randomization. You need to know about ADDA counterbalancing. You need to know about using Latin square for counterbalancing. For the different kinds of designs, you have to know types. So you have to know the difference, for example, between a true experiment and a quasi-experiment. You have to know the difference between, if you have an experiment, if you have a between subjects variable and you know that it's manipulated, then you can have a true experiment. If it's a subject variable, then you know you have a quasi-experimental design, right? For related groups, you have to be able to tell if something is a complete or incomplete design, if you're using full counterbalancing or partial counterbalancing, that kind of stuff. You need to know about different kinds of single factor designs. So you should be able to think about, look at a design that's for a single factor, one IV, with either 2 levels or 3 or 4. You should be able to identify what's the appropriate kind of statistic to use. So if you look at it and you see that there's one independent variable with 2 levels, you should know you need to do a t-test. If you see there's one independent variable with 4 levels, you should know you need to do an ANOVA, for example. You need to know about factorial designs. So you have to remember the flow chart of all the different kinds of factorial designs. So you have to know the difference between a P and E factorial design and a mixed factorial design and an incomplete factorial design. You need to know, how those are all different and be able to identify them. You need to be able to do that factorial notation thing, right? Like this is a 2 by 3 random groups factorial design. You have to be able to remember, do all that stuff. You need to be able to do independent and related groups t-tests, independent and related groups ANOVA for single factor, you should be able to calculate F-max. You should know what homogeneity of variance is. You should be able to do a Tukey's test, Tukey's HSD test, appropriately, do a post-hoc test when it's appropriate. You should be able to calculate Cohen's d, r squared, and eta squared as measures of effect size, and do so appropriately. Yeah.
What's the size? We can bring in a note card. Or
1 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with anything you want on one side.
Okay.
Anything. I will provide the table of critical values for you, so obviously you don't need to remember. I've never made you memorize critical values. That would be bizarre. Same rules apply as usual. Default alpha is 0.05 if I don't say, right? If I do say, and I say something different than 0.05, pay attention because it matters. So you will have to know how to look up critical values for independent groups t-test, related groups t-test, independent groups ANOVA, related groups ANOVA, factorial ANOVA for independent groups. Okay, you have to be able to look up that. That means you have to know which degrees of freedom to use. And we now know, you used to think degrees of freedom was like 1 or 2 things. Now you know it's like 10 things. Right? So you have to know the difference between degrees of freedom pooled and degrees of freedom of the difference, and degrees of freedom numerator, degrees of freedom denominator, and all those other fun things. Remember, degrees of freedom between conditions, within conditions, between subjects, error, and total, all those ones. Oh my gosh, you got to keep those straight.
It's that chart, right?
That's right, the chart, that's right. Remember the marvelous ANOVA chart where you can write the formulas in the boxes to remind you which formula you use for which thing? Use it again. Okay, so you also need to be able to do ATA-style statistical statements for t-tests and ANOVA. You need to be able to do a summary, the kind of summaries you've been doing all semester, the 4-point summary. What was compared about the groups? Or what groups are we comparing? What was compared about the groups? Was the difference significant? And if so, what was the direction of the effect? And it also has to be clear from your description whether the comparison or comparisons that were made were between subjects or within subjects. So it has to be clear from your wording what was compared to what, and if it were the same groups or different groups. You need to be able to do, you don't have to be able to do the whole long two-way factorial ANOVA because we never did that, but you do need to be able to do the main effects and interactions things where we add an average. Remember that? I do the marginal means, right, where we add an average and then we compare. And I give you a critical value and you tell me whether or not there's a main effect. You have to be able to do the interaction thing where we subtract in the same direction and compare. And I give you a critical value, so you need to be able to do that. You also need to be able to look at an AP-style statistical table. And if it has all the information from a factorial ANOVA, like the sums of squares for all the different things and the degrees of freedom and the mean square, you should then be able to calculate F observed for the main effect of IV1, the main effect of IV2, and the interaction. You should also be able to look up the relevant critical value to tell if there is a main effect for a main effect or an interaction from the table. You need to be able to interpret graphs. Remember we looked at all those bar graphs and line graphs? And you learned how to tell from looking at a graph what features, well, you learned what features of the graph you should look at to know whether or not it's possible that there's a main effect or an interaction, if it seems likely or not. I think that's all of it in terms of content. In terms of the types of questions, same types of questions we've had on previous tests. So matching, fill in the blank, multiple choice, short answer, and calculation. Just like before, for calculation, show all your work, every single step. Don't forget anything. Also, don't forget, we round at every step to 2 decimal places. Don't forget that. Don't just start punching things in and just keep going, because then your numbers are going to come out weird and you're going to lose half a point and you'll be happy with yourself. So make sure that you round at every step, round to 2 decimal places, show all your work. In terms of length, you can expect that the test will be somewhere around 40 questions, because questions with calculations are worth 3 points. Other questions are worth 2 points. Questions where you have an effect size and have to do not only the calculation, but identify the effect size and then tell me whether it's small, medium, or large. Those are 4 points. Well, aside from that, similar kinds of point values that we've done before. Our exam in here, I believe, is Thursday, a week from today. What time does this start? 10:45. 10:45? You guys are lucky. My other class, their final starts at 8 a.m. Their 9:30 class, their final starts at 8 a.m. I said, don't come at 9:30, folks. You'll be really unhappy if you come at 9:30 for the final. So they're jealous. You guys actually get to sleep a tiny bit before you come to class. Maybe. Maybe. Let's see, what else can I think of? Does anybody have any questions that I have not, anything that I've not answered about the final? Do you have study groups planned?
Yeah, one tomorrow. I got to put like the rooms and stuff, and then I'm looking at something next week too, but I'm still not sure. But definitely tomorrow and sometime next week.
Okay.
What time
tomorrow?
Tomorrow's gonna be
it's
gonna be in the morning, so like maybe like 9 until 1.
Okay.
In that window, and then I can do it also again like from 5 until whenever.
Okay, awesome. Either works.
And can I just reiterate that Javier has been the undergraduate TA for this class on a strictly volunteer basis. He gets no credit, he gets no pay. He's doing all this because he wants to be a better teacher someday when he becomes a professor. So, yay Javier, thanks for the videos, man. Yay. Javier, running study groups. Okay, yes?
This is not a question, but I also...
This is not a question.
No, but
all right.
because we talk about study groups. So,
Yeah.
I also reserved rooms for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Okay.
I'll put it up on the discussion forum for you guys. It's like, I think it's like, I did it for almost 3 hours.
Okay.
So, I'll put it up for you guys.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. I know my other class also has study groups running Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, or so you may run into other people there who sound like they're talking about stuff you know about. They might. They might very well. So, any other questions? We've got study groups going all next week. Papers due Monday at noon. My office hours are booked from end to end. Those office hours I don't have. That they say on my student evaluations that I'm never present for. The office hours that I'm never at. Let's see. So, anything else? Any questions? Does anyone have any questions about the final paper that I can answer for you right now? Anybody want any tips on proofreading or anything you're like, tell me again how to do that thing. I don't know how to do that. Yeah.
So for the Sirocco, you said we can write at Al 2013 or 14?
After the first full reference,
Okay.
in APA style, the first time you cite all the authors. Unless you have like 6 or more.
That's for me, that's like the first sentence, first paragraph.
That's fine after that one.
After that, yeah. Then it's then future citations after that are all Sirocco et al. 2013, with a period after the al but not after the et.
Okay. What about the first mentioning of them? Do I have to say
The
all
first
their
one is
names?
yes.
So the first citation and the first mentioning.
Those are the same thing.
Well, no, like saying them, like mentioning in the sentence versus citing them.
It's all the same thing.
Oh, okay.
It's all the same thing. So if you say, the first time you refer to both studies, you say, maybe the first time you talk about Stansbury and Monroe 2013 in the first paragraph, and the next couple sentences later you say Sirocco, Ledinowski, and Van Volkum 2013. You have now, that's first mention. So now, after that, you refer to Stansbury and Monroe as Stansbury and Monroe in that paragraph with no date. And Sirocco and her colleagues as either Sirocco et al., Sirocco and her colleagues, the Sirocco research group, whatever you want to call them, but you don't have to ever say Sirocco, Ledinowski, and Van Volkum again. In fact, you're not supposed to, because it's too many words. So, once you get to a new paragraph, then you have to do a new citation. That needs to be in the first time you refer to the studies in the new paragraph, make sure you do a new citation. Again, that would be Stansbury-Monroe 2013, but now for the other paper, it's Sirocco et al. 2013. You never have to say Ledinowski and Van Volkum again until you get to the references page. Do make sure that your references are alphabetized. Sirocco, the Sirocco paper goes on top of the Stansbury paper because C comes before S. So make sure you put them in order, correct order. And for those of you that hadn't noticed, the correct APA style citations are in the schedule of topics in the syllabus because I always gave you the APA style citation there. So if you've been getting dinged for problems with your citation and you're missing elements or something, go take a look at what I put in the schedule of topics because I always gave you the full citation when I said read this paper so that you could always be sure you were reading the right one. Any other questions? I know, it's a gloomy day. You got 1,000,005 things due this week, right? How you guys have more papers due than my class? 3, 4, 5. Do you see that we have not slept in 3 days?
And my laptop was stolen.
And your laptop gets stolen.
All the papers on it.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
When do I want to?
All right. Anything else? Any other questions? We do have all the videos up there. Javier, you still have all the keys for the tests and keys for the problem sets?
Yeah.
So if you have questions, he can help you answer your questions. He's got those from me. Anything This is your last chance. Yes.
Is something you're gonna post the study guide on the Saturday?
There's no study guide.
Sorry, not study guide, the study group.
Study
Yeah,
group?
on the discussion post, like board, there'll be like a new.
You're going to do that as soon as you leave here, right? So
Right.
everyone will know?
Yeah.
And do we have class next Tuesday?
No, this is it. This is our last. This is why I'm sad.
I love you guys.
It's like we've all been stranded on the island for 6 months. And we're being rescued. Yes.
Are we gonna have one more chicken? Or is it?
Well, I realized that it would actually not be fair because there are people who didn't come today because they don't need to take the final. So it wouldn't. That would make them lose 5 points, and that's not fair. So.
How many total should we have?
In the end, there will be, I think there's 7 check-ins on top of all the regular APP assignments. So if I haven't actually gathered 7 check-ins total, or between me and Yuri, we don't have 7 check-ins total, then I just give you the 5 points for any ones that we didn't do.
Oh.
I just give it to you. So I'm like, if I didn't do a check-in, then yeah, you can just have the 5 points.
I have a question. On the subject that we're going to have a chance to earn 100 points towards check-ins, but there are only 7 online.
No, it's because all the other AP assignments also count towards that. So there's 13 things. Every problem set, every article worksheet, all those things counted as 5-point things. So peer reviews counted as 5-point things. All the first drafts of papers counted as 5-point things. So when you add up all those things, there were 20 things that counted for 5 points each, and that's 100 points total. So it's the check-ins are part of APP points, but it's 100 points for APP total. Attendance, participation, and preparation. All right. You're ready? You know what you need to know? You're not ready, but we know. Now it's just a matter of making it happen.
Know what to do.
Yeah, we know what to do. Now we just have to get it to where we can do it.
Just doing it.
We're just doing it is the thing. Okay. Well, all I can say is you guys have been a wonderful class. Thank you for being super fantastic. And I will miss you. Come see me. Come visit. You know where I am. My office. I can't leave because I would have to clean my office, so you'll always be able to find me. And I will see you guys at the final exam if I don't see you in office hours this week. Go forth and be awesome. You're great.